For over a century, the British monarchy has thrived on a rhythm of calculated precision. It is a machine fueled by routine, polished portraits, tightly controlled statements, and a silence that usually signifies strength. But today, silence wasn't reassurance. It was a scream, muffled beneath the weight of heavy velvet curtains and iron gates. It began at precisely 3:57 p.m. across the digital landscape. The royal family's presence simply ceased. Twitter feeds froze. Instagram stories vanished. The automated scheduling tools used by palace press officers were manually overridden. In the high-speed world of modern media, where silence is a vacuum, this wasn't just a pause. It was a void. Inside the major newsrooms of London, from the BBC to Sky News, the atmosphere shifted from casual curiosity to freezing dread. Phones that typically rang off the hook with press officers offering off-the-record denials were now dead lines. Senior editors reached out to their contacts at Kensington Palace only to be met with voicemails. Clarence House, known for its brisk efficiency, had gone dark. By 4:30 p.m., the physical signs of a crisis began to manifest. Tourists outside Windsor Castle watched in confusion as the changing of the guard was abruptly halted. Reinforcements arrived, not ceremonial guards in red tunics, but tactical units and black-suited advisors rushing behind the barriers. There was no public explanation, no leaks to the tabloids. Just a sudden, terrifying tightening of the perimeter, before we exposed the devastating reality of what was happening behind those closed doors. Make sure you are subscribed. You need to witness this history as it unfolds. While the public speculated, seasoned royal correspondents stationed at Kensington Palace noticed a chilling detail. Royal helicopters, usually grounded unless for scheduled state visits, lifted off from the private grounds of Windsor. These weren't the standard transport choppers. These were aircraft utilized for rapid medical evacuation. Their flight path was erratic, their destination unlisted. This wasn't logistics. This was crisis protocol. At Clarence House, where King Charles had been seen only 24 hours earlier, the gates were sealed. White coats, unmistakably high-level medical specialists, were spotted being ushered in through side entrances, their faces grim, carrying equipment that suggested intensive care, not routine checkups. The paparazzi, usually aggressive, lowered their cameras. The air was too heavy. The instinct wasn't to photograph. It was to pray. Behind the palace walls, a protocol known to only a handful of people in the world had been activated. Code Sable, according to former senior staffers. Code Sable is the nuclear option of royal emergencies. It is not used for scandals. It is not used for political crises. It is triggered only when the very continuity of the monarchy is under immediate, catastrophic threat. It means the unthinkable has happened or is about to simultaneously. The firm's most senior figures, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, and a disgraced Prince Andrew, were summoned. They arrived in unmarked cars, briefed by aides under the highest security clearance. There were no waves to the crowd, no smiles. The movements were military in their precision and funereal in their mood. The inner circle had been pulled into a vortex that no one on the outside could yet comprehend. News began to bleed into Fleet Street's elite circles. The directive went out to news desks. Prepare for blackout protocols. Editors scrapped their front pages. Television producers quietly instructed anchors to change into black attire, the visual shorthand for national mourning. The BBC pulled its light entertainment programming, switching to a somber holding screen. The public knew something was wrong. The air in London felt different, charged with a static electricity of fear. And then, without fanfare, without a press conference, the notification arrived. It was 6 o'clock. P.M.15 devastating words appeared on every official royal platform. 15 words that shattered the illusion of control. Forever. It is with great sorrow that the royal family confirms the irreversible health condition of the name that followed froze the world in time. Princess Catherine the steady hand of the modern monarchy, the mother of the future king, the woman who had carried the crown's popularity on her shoulders for a decade. The statement was merciless in its clarity, asterisk irreversible, life-limiting, critical phase, asterisk there was no room left for speculation. The palace, usually the masters of ambiguity, had stripped away all hope. This was not a temporary withdrawal for recovery. This was a farewell in motion. As the nation gasped, a video file was uploaded. It was Prince William. He sat at a simple desk, devoid of the usual royal grandeur. He looked pale, his eyes hollowed by sleepless nights. He was holding on to his composure by a single, fraying thread of duty. When he spoke, his voice cracked before he could finish the first sentence. Asterisk as a husband, as a father, and as your Prince of Wales, I speak today from a place of profound sorrow. Asterisk the nation watched as the man destined to be king exposed a side never seen before. He wasn't regal. He wasn't rehearsed. He was raw. He was devastated. He was human. He spoke of Catherine's bravery, her quiet fight away from the cameras, and her specific wish that the public know the truth directly from them. He thanked the medical teams. But the line that haunted everyone, the sentence that lingered like a ghost in the room, came at the end, asterisk, she is still with us, but we have begun to prepare for what may come. Asterisk, the effect was immediate and staggering. It was a seismic shockwave. Government buildings lowered their Union Jacks. Royal insignias on state websites turned black. News anchors, veterans of tragedy, delivered updates with trembling hands and eyes wet with disbelief. This wasn't just the loss of a public figure's health. It was the looming loss of stability. Catherine was the anchor. Without her, the ship felt rudderless. By 6:17 p.m., the gates of Buckingham Palace were besieged by a sea of flowers. People dropped to their knees on the pavement, clutching photographs, lighting candles, holding hands with strangers. Children cried, sensing the grief of their parents. Grandparents whispered memories of 1997, seeing the echoes of Diana's loss, but this time the pain was different. It wasn't sudden and violent. It was slow, agonizing, and cruel. On social media, the reaction was explosive. Hashtags like #OurCatherine and #RoyalHeart trended globally within minutes. The monarchy hadn't just released a statement. They had detonated a truth the world wasn't ready to carry, but what the world didn't know was that this announcement had been days in the making. The battle behind the scenes was just as heartbreaking as the public announcement. 3 nights before the world knew, a secret meeting took place behind the sealed doors of Amber Hall. No aides. No press secretaries. Just William, King Charles, Queen Camilla, and Princess Anne. They were stripped of their titles in that room. They were just a family humbled by the cruelty of biology. The latest scans had confirmed what they feared in silence. The aggressive treatment had failed. Hope had become math, and the numbers were no longer in her favor. William, who had clung to every ounce of optimism, stood hollow. He was unable to speak without choking on the reality. Charles watched his son fall apart, seeing the terrifying reflection of a young William walking behind a coffin decades ago. Facing his own battles with age and illness, the king made a desperate proposition, *palliative options abroad. Experimental therapies. Privacy at any cost, but Catherine had already refused. She made the choice to stay. She didn't want to leave her children, not even for a second chance that offered no guarantees. She chose presence over promises. Princess Anne, the stoic pillar of the family, later confided to a friend that it was the cruelest grace she had ever witnessed. Anne's voice broke as she whispered to Camilla, this is Diana all over again. But slower, harder. Even in grief, the machinery of the monarchy grinded against itself. Camilla and Sophie, the Duchess of Edinburgh, found themselves on opposite ends of a quiet battle. Sophie, who had supported Catherine like a sister, demanded radical honesty with the public. She argued that the people deserved the truth. Camilla, hardened by decades of brutal media scrutiny, argued for restraint, for the dignity of silence. This clash exposed a deep fracture in the royal inner circle, not of loyalty, but of belief in how the monarchy should survive its pain. Meanwhile, upstairs at Amber Hall, the tragedy had already touched the innocent. Prince George, too old for fairy tales but too young for mortality. Allegedly overheard a whispered sentence that shattered his world. Asterisk, mummy might not make it to spring. Asterisk, that sentence was never meant for him. But it landed and it stayed. William found him crying alone later, asking no questions, only asking to sleep in his parents' room. From that moment, William made a choice. He cancelled every appearance. He suspended every duty. He was a husband first, a father second, and a prince a distant third. While the royals debated strategy, one woman decided to reclaim her narrative. Wearing a soft blue sweater in a sunlit corner of Amber Hall, Catherine sat before a single camera. No makeup team, no lighting rig. Just William holding the lens. "This isn't goodbye," she began. But the eyes told a different story. Catherine had decided to speak against the wishes of the men in gray suits. At the palace, she spoke of acceptance. She described love not as a grand royal duty, but as the quiet moments, bedtime stories, school runs, messy kitchens. She spoke directly to mothers, to daughters, to anyone who had ever been afraid. And then she did the unthinkable. She invoked Diana, not as a shadow, but as a guiding light. "My children will carry both our spirits forward," she said. Her voice steady even as William's hand trembled behind the camera. The video closed with a line now etched into the national consciousness. Asterisk, whatever happens next, know that I have loved fully. Asterisk, within 10 minutes. The video surpassed 50 million views. Doctors played it in oncology wards. Teachers played it in classrooms. The world didn't analyze it. They wept with it. It was a shared reckoning, a reminder of the fragility of life. As the public mourned, the palace machinery shifted from grief to survival mode. Inside Buckingham Palace, emergency meetings convened at dawn. Legal advisors and constitutional scholars gathered to debate a terrifying hypothetical. Asterisk, what if the heir walks away? Asterisk, the first rupture came from William himself. In a closed-door session, he expressed what aides had long feared. He was prepared to step away from public life entirely. One senior advisor confided, asterisk, he's not just grieving. He is done. If she goes, he goes. Asterisk, this wasn't a negotiation tactic. It was a raw confession. William had hit his threshold. Within 48 hours, George, Charlotte, and Louis were withdrawn from school and relocated to Balmoral, hidden away from the world, collapsing in slow motion. King Charles, carrying the dual weight of the crown and a grieving father, began to draft a personal succession letter, a contingency plan that would reconfigure the entire order of the British monarchy. The idea of a permanent regency for Prince George was discussed. The concept of Charles abdicating out of grief was whispered. The institution was cracking, but just when the darkness seemed absolute, a flicker of light pierced through. No announcement. No press pack. Just an image captured by a passerby near Windsor. Catherine, wrapped in scarves, pale but standing, holding Prince Louis's hand. The world gasped. Was it a miracle? Or was it the final burst of energy before the end? She walked slowly. George held her hand tightly, his face a mix of pride and terror. Charlotte picked flowers. Louis giggled at a butterfly. And Catherine smiled, not for the cameras, but for them. She was giving her children one last spring. She spoke only once to the onlooker. Asterisk, thank you for the prayers. Hours later, her team issued a statement of brutal honesty. This is not recovery. It is presence. And presence is everything right now. Asterisk, now the world holds its breath. The future of the British monarchy no longer hinges on acts of parliament or centuries of protocol. It hinges on how long one woman's heartbeat can sustain a nation. Catherine was never meant to be the crown. She was meant to steady it. But as she drifts toward the unknown, the monarchy faces an identity crisis of existential proportions. Who are they without her warmth? Who are they without her grace? William has reportedly drafted a private letter, not to the people but to the crown itself, stating he will not raise his children in the shadow of the machine that broke there. Mother. The crowds outside the palace are not chanting for a king. They are chanting for a woman who became the heart of a nation. As the sun sets on this modern Elizabethan era, we are left with the haunting reality: the monarchy has survived wars, divorces, and scandals. But it may not survive the death of belief. And Catherine was the belief.